And now let me welcome on to the A10 Insider Podcast, the man that is calling what may be the biggest game in the Atlantic 10 season, Dalen Cuff. Don't call him Dalen Cuff. Dalen, I got to tell you something before we get into this. So I've started posting some TikToks. I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm now a viral TikToker. I had one that got 350,000 views. I'm kind of a big deal. I'm still allowed to talk to you, but might have to get agents involved next time. But we posted one with Jalen Brunson finding out that Josh Hart got traded to the Knicks. And you know how on TikTok you can do that thing where it speaks for you, where it reads the words?
Go ahead. I'm old, man. Keep going.
So there's this part of the app that allows you to have it read something that was written for you, and basically in the voice of Alexa. And they pronounced Jalen. And I figured that you would appreciate that because I know there's plenty of people that don't pronounce your name the correct way.
I'm blown away by that. Whoever programmed, what kind of person was doing that? Like the programming for that. That's phenomenal. I wish they could program people's brains so they would read my name as Dalen, not Dalen. Hold on. Wait, what did you do to get 350,000 views? What was going on here?
It was, I posted the video of Zach Edey congratulating or taking the microphone from Braden Smith after the game. And he was like, listen, it wasn't his fault. This was on all of us. We're all teammates. I was like, this is what real leadership looks like. Some kind of corny thing. And it just blew up, man. Everything else I got is like 200 views. And that one's got 350,000.
Wow. I'm surprised you don't just lead with that as like your epitaph, like swift-footed Achilles should be Rob Doster, 350,000.
One time I got 350K views on a TikTok.
There you go. That's big time. I'm very impressed. I'm very proud to be here now. I wasn't before. Now I am. Now I've been put in my place.
All right. So listen, we're going to talk some A10 here. But before we do, one, I'm a Tottenham fan. You're an Arsenal fan. I'm going to let you say your piece about that. But at some point in there, can you just kind of tell me I don't think I know the answer to this. How did you end up an Arsenal fan?
So my senior year, I broke my foot right before in August. I kept saying my foot hurts, and turned out it was a stress fracture. Misdiagnosed. Love my folks at Columbia, but they thought it was tendonitis in my foot for like a month, where I was like, it hurt to walk, but I was doing like 3 hours of workouts a day. And shockingly, it got worse. It got to the point where I was struggling just to walk. And they did like one of those bone scans. Long story short, they see there's a hot spot in my foot. So they put one of the like titanium screws into my fifth metatarsal. Couldn't walk for the first month. And it just had started. The Champions League just started. It was the first week of September. And the guy on my floor, Dragutin Kravic, big Serbian dude, grew up there, came to New York when he was like 15 or so. But we just got like the alums gave me a TV, which technically is illegal, I guess, when you look back on it. They gave me the big screen TV. Some guy was stealing cable. So we had ESPN in my room. And he was like, hey, man, I used to carry the Champions League back then. He was like, can I watch Champions League games in your room? And I used to grow up playing soccer, kind of fell out of love with it or touch with it. But I played FIFA all the time. And I was like, sure, man. But I was just laid up in my room like all day a lot of times. So he just sat there explaining to me how the Champions League works, how it functions, the teams. And I recognized a lot of those brand names. And we started watching Arsenal. And then I started reading about the team. And I understood that like a lot of those homegrown guys, Arsene Wenger, how they played. I just love what they were doing. That was year they went to the final. Long story short, I watched them all through the fall. As I get healthy, I stay engaged. I watch them all through the spring. And then obviously you're done with basketball. Now I was like going out and drinking during the day and watching them play the knockout games. So they went to the final. They lose to Barcelona. It's a game that Jens Lehmann gets a red card. They fall in that game. But then I was like all into them. And then I graduate. It's an 06. It's a World Cup year. So I'm locked into World Cup coverage. So I'm like wall to wall with that, going right into being the first time in the working world where I had time for the first time ever in my life to just do whatever. And Fox Soccer Channel was on all the time. I'd watch Arsenal every weekend and got really into the EPL and became a huge Arsenal fan ever since then. Ironically, have not won a Champions League, have not made it to a Champions League semifinal, have not won a EPL league title, and have won 3 FA Cups since I became a fan. So maybe me, I don't know. And of course, we had 17 straight years of being in the Champions League and have now had a 5-year hiatus because that's been a bit rough run. There you go. But hey, we're back, baby. We're back.
Yeah, you very much are back. And look, at least you got 3 FA Cups. I've never seen anything. So you're talking to someone that has felt that pain before. Make a prediction. Is it going to happen this year? Are they going to win it?
I think they are. I mean, I put my money where my mouth is. Around Christmas time, I said, you know what? Hey, they're plus 250. Let's throw some shekels on this. If they had the lead at that when they went into break, they still had that 5-point lead. They still have that now with the game in hand, and I think they're going to find a way, bro. I think part of it because City does not look like the machine they once did. Obviously, your Spurs did us a huge favor. Talk about holding your nose on Sunday. I was rooting for the Spurs. It was painful, man. I mean, they took the 1-0 lead, and I was like, all right, I don't want any more joy for them. Just let's end this just like this. And I held on, and they win the game. That was huge. So I do think that there is, next week on the 15th, Wednesday's the first time Arsenal plays City for the season. They had their game got postponed in the fall side of the schedule, so they play them twice here coming up next few months. But that's a big one. I still think they're going to do it, man. I really believe they're going to hold on. They're going to find a way. Even if they fall in this game on the 15th, they still have the ability. I think they can. They're going to have more adversity. It's not going to be easy, but they're going to find a way to do it. I literally can't believe it's going to happen, and that I'm allowing myself to be that vulnerable here, Rob. That vulnerable that if they fall, I'm going to be crushed. Because last year I was crushed and they didn't make the top 4. Like watching that capitulation was hard. I hope I couldn't stomach if they fall apart here. I believe they're going to get it done.
Well, look, as much as it pains me to say this, I do think that it is. I don't want to say I'm rooting for it to happen, but I do think that it would be a good thing for the sport overall if Arsenal takes down City, just because of there's a lot of reasons that go beyond probably what belongs on a college basketball podcast for why Manchester City is a bad thing for sports in general. I want to ask you this too. So I would say you are about as versatile as anybody kind of in the college basketball media space. You do hosting stuff, you do analyst stuff on games, you've called Ivy League games, you've called Atlantic 10 games, you've done NBA draft combine coverage, you do like ACC network soccer stuff. How did that come about? Like, how did you played college basketball, obviously, but how did you kind of end up being this, I don't know, like a utility infielder kind of in a role like that for broadcasting?
Thanks, man. I appreciate the kind words. And I do think it was part of the deal was basically when I went to MSG Varsity was my first on-air network. Them and Verizon Fios launched the same year, but Varsity actually was the first games I ever did. And that was my side job to being in advertising and marketing for the first 5 years out of school. So where I say this is that first year I'm with MSG Varsity, I'm just calling games and I'm an analyst, but they have these 4 different shows. They invested so much money in this product, man, and they didn't take any advertising. You knew the model was not going to be sustainable. Also, the inmates were running the asylum a little bit, like a bunch of us in our mid-20s, but it was they had a lot of great pros, including Mike Quick, who's anybody that has grown up in the tri-state area knows Mike Quick, a legend with high school sports, helped me get in there, helped me get a job, and really helped develop me. But the reason that I bring that up is I was an analyst that first year, and then going into the summer, they had 4 shows. They had a show focused each day that would be like a 30-minute show, basically Sports Center, focused on Connecticut, New Jersey, Long Island, and New York City. And they were moving some people around. They're like, would you want to be a host? Have you ever thought about that? We'd like you to host our New York City show. And bear in mind, dude, just playing at Columbia, I figured that ESPN would never hire me as an analyst. You think back in 2011, that ESPN and basically sports media in general, it was only where you played. And you can think of a lot of guys who are Hall of Famers that got the mic and were terrible, but they got the mic. And some were decent enough that they kept the jobs, or some were really good and they obviously are going to keep the job. So it was, to me, I'm like, I got to have other skill set because I don't think they're ever going to give me a chance to do this. And I'd never read off a prompter. Thank those folks at MSG Varsity, because that first time, dude, it's like aliens took over my body. Like I could not talk, function, emote. It was so bad. So I worked all summer and people would go and stack fake rundowns for me and go through shows and give me feedback and made me serviceable by the time I hit the fall. And that was just my first foray to wanting to try to do something different. I really enjoyed the hosting piece of it. And then as I went forward my career, NBC plugged me into one of their regionals in Boston as a host and a reporter. Well, I also called national games for them on NBC Sports Network, and then went to ESPN. There were more opportunities. I mean, NBC, I did the Olympics too. It's great. That was fortunate to do that and pressed to do that and did some things to have that opportunity. But when I went to ESPN, there would be even more opportunities. And I got into soccer at different networks, at CBS and at USL and NWSL. And when I came to ESPN full time, I knew there would be more chances to do that. That's part of me going there, was to do their college soccer coverage on ACC Network and ESPN ESPN broadcast networks, and call the Final Four and do stuff like that. And I've raised my hand and tried to push myself into every different avenue, because I didn't think they'd let me just be an analyst. And once I realized I could do other stuff, and other companies realized that, they gave me the opportunities. But I find it really interesting, really mentally engaging, keeps me sharp on different stuff, and keeps me like constantly thinking about other things than just basketball and working in other areas. So I love it. And I feel like it's been a gift, a bit of a curse, because I'm always, working a lot, but that's a great thing. And I've loved the opportunities and people giving me the chances. I kind of push for the opportunity. They give it to me, and hopefully I've done well enough that they continue to do that in different sports as we move forward, which has been great.
Yeah, working a lot in this business means that people actually like what you're doing, which is always a positive thing. Let me ask you this. So I've kind of dealt with this a little bit myself. The difference between hosting a show and hosting a panel with 2 or 3 people on it and being the analyst? Like, how do you, when you go into like a halftime segment and it's you and Sean Farnham and somebody else, right? And you're kind of in that host role. How different is the preparation? How different is it on that set in that moment? Because it's a very I'm not a very good host. Let's just put it that way.
I think you have to have a mindset change. This is for people to understand this. When you're calling a game, particularly, that is the analyst show. It is we want to drive what you find most interesting, what you find to be the keys to the game, your deduction of watching film, what you get from talking to coaches. Play-by-play guy's job, in my mind, is to set that person up for success. And when I sit in that chair and play-by-play, whether it's basketball, which I've done basketball games, or if it's soccer is more traditional role because I didn't play the game, so I will always be the outsider there. Basketball, it's kind of just a matter of, humbling yourself. It's not my job to necessarily be the analyst. Now, I do think when I do play-by-play for basketball, they've asked of me to be a little different. Can it be 2 people talking hoops, and can you kind of go back and forth? Which I do, but I still do defer to my analyst. I do not. If they want to talk about certain people, I don't push back. If they think it's a certain thing, I don't push back. Now, if I see something different, I may say that, and we have a discussion on air, because during a game, you have more time for that. In the studio, I'm the point guard, man. You guys want to talk about this? I'm going to get you to your spots. And that's, in terms of preparation, the difference is with hoops, I know all the material already a lot of times, and I will watch the film and stuff. It's a simple thing of like, all right, maybe in the last 5 games, give me how many points he's averaging. Maybe I wouldn't have looked that up. Now I'll look it up so I have something to tie a bow on whatever Sean just said. Or if coach is talking about their rebounding numbers, let's look, okay, they're 3rd in the nation in offensive rebounding rate. Let's make sure I have that in my head. I knew they were a great rebounding team already. What was the exact number? Like, just to have stuff like that. I think the preparation is a little bit different. The execution is way different because it's not their job is to be the analyst. And I think where people can get stuck if you're going back and forth, my job when I'm sitting there, the host, is not to try to impress people, not to try to impress my knowledge on it. It's to make my analysts look good and get them where they want to go and get our promo reads in and get the people paid for the sales elements and do that role as best as I can. And that's the difference. I think when you have of 2 minds, or you want to try to play both at the same time, you do neither well. You have to just do whatever role you're in. And the only time that becomes a little challenging is when they have 2 people on the desk, just 2 of us on the desk. They do ask me then to be a host/analyst, which is weird because if you're trying to get to the next rollout and you're trying to talk about whatever game it is, but you're finishing your point as an analyst, you got to kind of switch your brain. So that can get a little tricky. But those aren't that often. But that is also they are asking me to do a different role. When it's 3 wide, I know my role clearly, and you don't mess with it. And that, I think, the last thing in terms of preparation for a game, I still watch all the film. I can't stop that. That's just in my DNA. But you do know, like, every guy's hometown and story that I may not know every guy on the roster when I'm doing the analyst role. But as a play-by-play guy, I would, in case I need to get in and out. I get a little more of the biographical stuff, even for the 13th, the 14th guy on the bench, versus some of the executional X's and O's stuff. That's in my head, but not necessarily always top of mind, because that's not necessarily my role.
The hardest thing for me in the host chair is getting into something and getting out of something, right? It's the intros, it's the lead-ins, you're going to commercial break and you need to put together a tease to make it sound like something that people want to come back to. Those are the things where I'm just like, man, I'm not really built for this. Once you get in the flow of the conversation, it's kind of easy to say, all right, we got to move on to this next thing. All right, I got to cut you off because we gotta make this read. But getting in and out of stuff is just, man, I'm not. I need more reps. Let's put it that way, Dalen. I need more reps.
Bear in mind, like, I've been doing this since 2011, and that's where, like, the funny thing about ESPN at times is, even when I was hosting, obviously they brought me on for ACC Network to be a host. It took them a while for them to want me to let me host stuff on ESPN, until I think I did SportsCenter in the summer of 2020 or something, whatever, maybe the summer of 2019, whatever it was the first time they're like, oh, well, maybe we should branch out. And then Raps, the studio stuff of basketball, was basically a necessity. They were running out of people, and Billy Graff was great and brought me in. It's like, would you just do it with Sean one night? And I said, yeah, let's do it. And then they liked that product, and me and Sean began to do that for, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 straight weeks, 3 or 4 years ago. But at ESPN, sometimes it's funny. Unless you've done it at ESPN, they don't necessarily think you can do it. And you have to prove yourself over and over again. But bear in mind, I do get you with the teases and, bumps in and out of stuff, pre-tease, post, like bumping stuff and whatever can be weird. But when the reps do matter. And I've done that role for now 12 years. So that stuff, at first is always awkward, dude. It takes a while. It takes a long time to get comfortable with that.
Yeah, I have to plan it. I like write that stuff out beforehand. It's like, all right, so we're heading into the show. All right, this is what we're gonna have this in the second segment. All right, I got to make sure I say this and have it written out and have a script. Otherwise, I just kind of stumble over my words, and it's always awkward when you end with yeah, we're going to break now. It's like that. I'm sure Sirius XM loves hearing that from me. All right, last thing, and then I swear we're gonna talk Atlantic 10 hoops here at some point. But you were able to call a game in Fog Allen Fieldhouse this year. I know that's a bucket list item. That's got to be. It is for everybody that's in this business. What's the next one? What's the next bucket list place that you want to call a game? What's the next maybe venue that you haven't been to that you want to be at?
Is it we talking just college hoops right now?
Anything, whatever you want. You're Mr. Versatility over here, man.
Yeah, dude. Like I'm getting involved in our F1 coverage, so like I think being on site for those F1 races is going to be awesome in the States, but. Getting to a race overseas, seeing it in Monaco, the race may not be as great, but the scene is something unique. Or to be at the Grand Prix in Sao Paulo. I love Brazil and speak the language. That would be a truly unique experience. So I think getting involved in F1 is something I've been really talking about and working with them the last 5 or 6 months. That's going to come to fruition, which I'm very excited about. That season actually starts on March 5th, the last day of the regular season for college hoops. So I would say being at one of those venues, experiencing that, is also I'm never going to call a Premier League game. I just want to go, bro. I'm going in August, September. That's happening. My I turned 40. He's already said like we're going over there. He's planning the trip. So that's going down. And he's a Spurs fan, mind you. I don't know how the hell.
Man, I got the wrong cuff on here.
You really do. I don't know how this is going to work out, but you call him the cruise director. He'll do the planning. He'll figure it out. But I want to experience that. As a fan, I would love to be involved in calling the F1 piece of things. In terms of basketball in the States, that was like the last huge venue I hadn't been to. And Fog was always a massive bucket list item. Thank David Seisler, our coordinating producer of college basketball. I asked him 3 or 4 years ago, I was like, hey, man, if there's ever a chance, I don't care who they're playing, can I just get to the Fog? I shouldn't say that. I want to get to Assembly Hall, too. That's one, too. I do want to get to Assembly Hall and see a game there and see a Big Ten game there would be pretty dope. So there are venues, true. I have to go through them, but Fog was always. It's just the history of it is something else, man. It was truly a unique experience that I cherish and I'll never forget. And I would say Assembly Hall is the next one that I could get to. Other than that, I've been to a lot of the brand name big ones that I wanted to experience, and I do think part of that, loving other sports, and I think just being other sport culture fascinates me. And I love to experience and see what those cultures are like in different parts of the world with the sports that rev up these people on a whole different level. And soccer is one of them. Obviously, F1 is one of them.
Yep. All right. You are going to be calling a game in a pretty good venue tomorrow night. On Friday night, it's going to be Dayton at St. Louis. This was the one that we circled before the season started. I think everybody had Dayton and St. Louis as the two best teams in this conference right now, as we're sitting here on February 9th. Are Dayton and St. Louis actually the two best teams in the Atlantic 10?
Ooh,
I'm putting you on the spot here, man. We're coming with the big guns.
It's hard to leave VCU out of that mix, but in terms of ceiling, I do think those are the two teams that have the best ceiling in terms of what they would be able to do. Not in the A10 tournament, but in the NCAA tournament, if either one of them gets there. I think VCU is a very good team, and obviously they've beaten both those teams on their own court. I called both those games, and Ace Baldwin went nuts last weekend for 37. The end of the game at Dayton, down 4 with 28 seconds to go, and winning by 1 regulation was just literally unbelievable. And there were about 3,000 Flyers fans when I got up to leave, just in their seats still, just shell-shocked, as we all kind of were. Like, what just happened here? So I can't leave them out of the mix. I just don't know if full health, Dayton, I think, offers more. If Malachi Smith can just get healthy, man, and could just play consistently, I think they're the best team. I think they offer the most versatility in terms of their defensive length is a beast. They're the tallest team in the country. They make it really hard for you to score. They took Ace out of that game. They obviously just beat VCU this week, and they didn't take him out of the game. They made him inefficient. Their length and athleticism is a big piece. I do think at times they can struggle to score, but in an NCAA environment, having a big like Deron Holmes to play through, and if Malachi is fully healthy, Kobe Elvis playing better, I think offers you more. St. Louis is still very Yuri Collins dependent. Despite other guys having big games, if you can take Yuri out of the game, you can really disrupt that team. We've seen that in recent weeks, obviously, where whether it was at Fordham, he just was taken out of the game and struggled. He was taken out of the game against VCU for about 20 minutes this past week as well, and a game they ended up losing on their home floor. So I do think Dayton is the best team with the best potential. St. Louis and VCU are right there, but I may give the edge to St. Louis despite what they just lost at home to VCU. But it's hard to Ace put up 37, bro. Like you can't do that every night. That was insane.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. I got to imagine for Dayton dealing with Malachi Smith. I think it's what now 4 ankle injuries in the last 12 months, and it's not just like one bad ankle. It's sprained the left one, then the right one, then the left one. I think the most recent injury was to the right one. And do we know if he's going to be back? Is there word yet? Have you heard?
I have not heard, and obviously we'll be at shoot around tomorrow. But I really hope so. I'm holding out hope, and we'll be there at shoot around. We'll find out what the deal is. But
let me ask you this then: with him, how does that change who they are and change what they are as a team?
It makes things easier on offense, man. No disrespect to Mike Sharpjumps, freshman from Mongolia, the first Division I freshman basketball player.
Hey, great pronunciation right there, man. Good job. Nailed that one.
Go back to the first game I called. It was a rough run the first 5 or 6 minutes. And of course, Mike Corey, it was excellent. I got right into it. I said his name first, and I had to hear it once, and it took me a few go rounds, a few reps, as I said before, but now I've got it. But he's a really talented young man, and at 6'7" offers you something a little different. Not a natural point guard, not a guy that's getting in the lane and facilitating and making it necessarily easier for other guys as much as they are running offense, and he's facilitating them to run their offense. You need a guy at Malachi times. He's averaging, I think, 5 assists a game when he plays. Like, he's able to get there and just make the game easier for guys. Get in lane, kick out, drop offs, pick and roll situation. He's more of a threat, especially to the roll man and hooking up guys with lobs. So he offers a lot more in that regard than anybody on their team. He makes them different. So it's not just can he play. He's got to maintain health and actually get in a rhythm with his guys. And that's really what's been sad about this year for this team is they had such high hopes, but without him, not the same. Obviously, Kobe Elvis went through an injury as well. He's back, but still trying to be as efficient as he needs to be and as solid with the ball as he needs to be. But that's where he makes them different. They just don't have a guy. They don't have a one-to-one replacement for Malachi.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough when you bring a guy back from injury, especially someone that plays a role as important as a point guard, where you kind of figure out what you're doing without him, and then you put him back in there, and everyone's got to get adjusted to, okay, we're going to start playing this way a little bit. It's going to be a little bit more different. And I think we saw that some when he came back before this most recent injury. So seeing how they kind of adjust to not having him, it's you don't get that continuity, right? That continuity of your rotation, the depth, everyone knowing I'm going to get these minutes, I'm going to get these shots. This is how it's going to end up working. So that's got to be something that's frustrating for them. So St. Louis was a team I thought was going to be like a preseason top 25 kind of a team. I thought that they had second round, maybe Sweet 16 kind of potential, just so many scores, so much offensive firepower. I do think that losing Fred Thatch is kind of, you lose that kind of junkyard dog defensive menace piece is not something that's easy to deal with. So why haven't they quite hit that ceiling? Is it just they're not guarding as well as we thought they should?
There's a couple of things. Fred Thatch is really important. I don't think we mentioned him enough. And I say we being the guys that call the games. I know we showed him, I think, last weekend. Or we mentioned him. I don't think we showed him on the bench. When you show him, I think you always get a longer time to talk about his impact. But he's not just a glue guy. Like, he's a really good rebounder, tough defender. He does the little things. A great leader in a team that Yuri Collins is very, very quiet. And your best player is not always your best leader. Thatch is their leader. And when he goes down, they can be rudderless at times. So him being out has hurt. Hargrove has stepped in and played well, but he's a different kind of guy. Javonte Perkins is still not Javonte Perkins pre-torn ACL. That's been huge. He's just not the same guy. The knee is healthy, but you still have a confidence piece. You have a feel piece. He's a little more straight up and down. He doesn't have that much explosion anymore. He's really reliant on making just straight up jump shots. Whereas I think before he was a little more versatile and could handle a little better. I do think Gibson Jimerson is a very good shooter, but when you run him off the line, he hasn't been as effective if they need him to be. He doesn't have as much of a mid-range game, or once he get in the lane, he's not playmaking for others. So that part of his game has not really developed. And Francis Okoro is a guy at times, at least in league season, they've tried to play through him on the block, but dude's in foul trouble all the time. That's not helping. And Yuri Collins has gotten in foul trouble a lot too. And Travis Ford is pretty stringent about his 2 foul participation. If somebody picks up 2 in the first half, they're sitting until a situation presents themselves where they have to change that. and that can put them in some tough spots. And he's wrote out some situations, and they've survived, like at Davidson, but didn't at Fordham and didn't at VCU with some of their foul issues there too. So, or at home to VCU, I should say. So, long story short, this is a team that the pieces we thought would be there. We thought you'd have Javante back. You thought you'd have Fred fully healthy. You thought Jimerson would develop more, and Yuri would have all these different guys to facilitate and work towards, and some great rebounding bigs. They don't rebound as well offensively as well. So there's a number of reasons they have not been at the pinnacle that we thought they would be at. And that's tough for the league because you do need them and Dayton and VCU at times to beat teams out of league to carry the water for the league and bring their metrics up. But they didn't do that this year. And now, unfortunately for VCU and Dayton, they had injuries. I mean, Ace Baldwin was hurt in part of the non-conference. Obviously, Malachi and Kobe, as we already mentioned. So those teams not being fully healthy and then losing some of their big games is pretty critical as it relates to their resume now, but also more broadly the league.
Well, listen, Dalen, safe travels out there. You're heading out to St. Louis now. I think you're actually driving to the airport as we speak. Have a great call. It's going to be an awesome game. 8 o'clock Friday nights, ESPN2, you and Mike Corey. Great dude. I love Mike. He's a really good guy, yes. Really good at what he does. So I appreciate you jumping on. It's always good to catch up. And hopefully both of us, our fandom out there in the Premier League will have successful ends to the season. Maybe varying degrees, but I wouldn't complain if both those teams made it. I'll put this. I'll root for Arsenal to win the league if you help me pull for Spurs getting top 4. Can you do that?
Okay, so I'll take that. I'll take that exchange. We would love your well wishes, and I will especially root for Spurs in any game again. Like we're not playing City again. Any game that directly benefits the Gunners, I'm fully on board.
There you go, man. There you go, Dalen. Always appreciate you, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.